What's going on? Okay, meet Melissa. Now, there are currently 4 mistakes that are happening with Melissa's hair that unfortunately are causing her to look a little bit older. What I'm gonna do is walk you through exactly what those mistakes are, and much more importantly, how she can modify those mistakes to get a more youthful look. And we're gonna do that right now. Okay, now if you're new to the channel, my name is Justin Hickox. I've been doing hair since 1995, and typically I actually take you on adventures while I teach you about hair. I just kind of like the outdoors, and so that's usually how I roll. But today I'm actually back in my salon, which feels crazy because I haven't been here for so long to film a video. But nonetheless, in this series, I actually have people from this channel, subscribers, that send in their photos asking the question, what mistakes am I making and how can I get a more youthful look? And so you know, if you are thinking, wow, that sounds terribly mean, why would you put somebody on blast? They actually want me to. It's not as mean as it sounds. Okay, with that said, let's dive into mistakes. Okay, now, as always, I want to read you the email that accompanied Melissa's submission with these photos so you can get kind of a better idea of where I'm coming from with my suggestions. Now, this particular email, I don't want you to miss. Pay attention to this because there's a part in it that is exceptionally important. And here's the email. The email reads, Justin, thanks for taking the time to do these hair mistake help videos. I've had a hard time finding someone to do my hair, let alone someone that can help me with what would look best on me. Over the last 6 years, my body shape has changed. I have gone from a size 6 to 8 to a size 12 to 14 and have not been able to shake the weight. I have been diagnosed with hypothyroid 8 years ago, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and had a hysterectomy both within the last 2 years, which didn't help the weight problem. As a result, my self-esteem has taken a hit. I just don't feel very pretty. Okay, pause. If you've been around this channel for any period of time, I hope at this point you recognize that what I do here is to help people feel more confident. And the vehicle I use to do that is to teach you about hair. But today, you have something that's exceptionally powerful at the tips of your finger, and I am asking you to just use that power with me for just 1 second. Do me a huge favor and head below to the comment section. Now, I'm not going to ask you to subscribe to the channel or to hit like or anything like that. What I will ask you to do is share with Melissa something positive. Maybe it's something that you noticed about her when you saw her photos that you thought was beautiful. Or maybe it's some words of wisdom that have helped you navigate times like this where you just don't feel so good. But do me that one little solid of going down, pausing this video right now, and just spending 5 seconds to share some love with somebody that it will truly impact their life right now. Use that power that you have for good. Now is your time. So hit pause and do that for me. I would hugely appreciate it. And I'm pretty sure Melissa would too. I usually wear my hair up just to get it off my neck, and it is easy to twist up and out of the way. We lived in Mexico for a few years and moved back just as COVID was really getting started here in the States, so I have been coloring my own hair since moving back. I am fighting the gray hair roots all the time, currently using an argan oil permanent color 5NN 20 volume with color booster and gray magic. At what point is it not worth the fight, and do I just surrender to the gray hair? I am up for just about anything at this point. I like low maintenance, but I'm willing to put some time into styling my hair. I did my hair with this natural curl. It isn't much, and it usually doesn't hold for more than 4 hours before it goes more straight than curly. I also included a picture of my root line for context and the amount of gray that I'm covering. I last colored 2 to 3 weeks ago. Thanks for your consideration, Melissa. Okay, now before we dive into the mistakes very quickly, I just want to kind of throw a big caveat to this particular video in that the photoshopping on this one wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. So I'm going to need you to give me a little bit of lenience on this and just kind of use a tiny bit of your imagination. The actual shapes and looks would look better on Melissa in real life than they do in these particular photos. This was a particularly hard one for some reason to kind of get right. So just kind of know that going into it. All right. Now, mistake number 1 is that it's simply just a little bit too long. Now that's going to make no sense to you once we get a little further in this video because it's going to confuse you. You'll understand in a while. But right now, with this particular shape in her hair, this length is just weighing everything down. And as you can see, it's starting to draw the face down. It's starting to draw the overall shape down. It's bringing the eye down. And this is overall just making everything look heavy. But also, in her email, she did mention that she has a hard time getting her hair to hold curl. Yes, bringing that length up a little bit would give us a lot more room to how we go about layering it, and give us a lot more room in how we actually create shape and help her create more of the long-lasting curl, which takes us into mistake number 2. Mistake number 2 is that it's just a bit too heavy. Now, if you look at the overall shape, especially you can see that in this profile shot, you'll see that the bottom is just very full. Now, one of the things that Melissa mentioned in her email was that her curl, her natural curl, doesn't hold much longer than a few hours before it starts to pull straight. Now, in many cases, it's a lack of layering that you're seeing in this that will be part of the reason that that curl is being pulled out. If we were to layer this shape a bit more, it would lighten the shape up as a whole, but much more importantly, it would likely help some of that natural curl be a bit more enhanced, and at very minimum, if it didn't give her more curl, it would at least hold the current amount of curl that she's receiving for a longer period of time. But more importantly than that even, is that it would create a stronger shape where the eye wasn't being pulled down because of the bulk and the fullness that you're seeing right here in this bottom section. We would actually create more volume up in the top, which would help to lift the eye, and therefore, as I always say, lifting that eye does a great job of accentuating facial structure and overall getting a more youthful look. Now, mistake number 3 is that the part is just a little too close to the center. I would actually like to see this moved a little bit further over to the side. And the reason for this is because wavy hair especially already creates an inherent amount of volume on the sides. And so if we don't create enough volume on the top, it's going to have a tendency to add more width to not just the overall hair shape, but to our face shape as well. It can kind of create a little bit of this triangular shape. If we bring that parting just a little bit more to the side, it'll help a lot in creating a little bit of extra lift on top, while at the same time alleviating some of the bulk from the sides. And this will go a long way to removing some of the width and actually helping to elongate Melissa's face shape. Mistake number 4 is less of, I guess, a mistake, because this is a bit of an assumption, and more of just kind of some insight as to what may be creating part of the concerns that Melissa is having. Now, I want to get back to where she was talking about how she couldn't create enough curl, or that curl wouldn't last long enough. And what I think may be going on is the styling process that she's using. Now, this is a very broad subject. It could be the product that she's using isn't strong enough to give her the amount of control or curl that she wants. It could be a combination of the product as well as the actual styling techniques. It could be the styling technique, the product, as well as just down to the attachment, the diffuser or lack of using a diffuser on her blow dryer. There's a lot of things that can help enhance, or subsequently, if you don't use them, kind of take curl out of hair. I think if we bring all these mistakes together and then add into that the appropriate routine, this all together would give her a lot more defined curl, as well as curl that would last longer. Now, I'm not going to break down what that looks like on a step-to-step process. However, I will go ahead and link a video right here where I did exactly that, walk through the exact process on how I would approach drying curly hair to maximize the amount of wave and curl. And this is the exact process that I would recommend Melissa uses to get this same result. But just changing that up could do a ton in getting the amount of curl that Melissa wants to see. And now that we know what the mistakes look like, let's talk about the suggestions and kind of get a better look of exactly what it would look like on Melissa if she took my advice. And the first mistake that we saw was that the length was just a little bit too long. So if we actually brought this length up, this is what it would look like. Now, as you can see, the length does get a little bit stronger as we bring it up, but just like many times in these videos, just simply bringing the length up alone doesn't really get us where we want to go. In fact, in some ways, it actually almost compounds the problem because it lightens the hair up a little bit, but doesn't take the bulk out of where it needs to be. So it actually ends up just kind of getting to become a larger triangle. And I show you this on purpose so people understand the importance of all of these ideas or these suggestions collectively and how they all work together to create a better ending, if you will. Now, the next mistake was that it was just a little bit too heavy, really not enough layering. So if we actually did break the shape up a little bit more and give it a little bit more layering, well, this is what that would look like. Now we're starting to get volume in areas where we want to see volume. Now, with this particular Photoshop, the way I actually put this on Melissa, I wanted to make this look as realistic as possible when it comes to the volume and where the volume would sit. And what I mean by that is, we're going to talk a little bit in a second about the overall styling change, the process change. But if she approached her hair from the same way that she's approaching it right now, where she would likely see volume is where I'm showing it to you in this photo. Now, it does take some of the bulk out of the sides, but not quite enough, if I'm honest. It's still a little bit flat on the top, but that's partly because of where the part is, which we'll see in just a second. But it is heading us in the right direction. But again, it's just not quite getting us all the way there. Mistake number 3 was that the parting was a little bit too close to the center. So what would it look like if we actually moved that parting a little bit over to the side? Well, this is what that would look like. Now you can see that we're starting to get a bit more volume on top, and it's really starting to kind of come together a bit more. This shape starts to help to lift the eye up, and ultimately just take some of that bulk out of the bottom so it doesn't draw the eye down. This goes also a long way to start accentuating some of Melissa's fantastic cheek structure. She's got great cheekbones, and this really helps to kind of overall define them, as well as start to elongate her face just a little bit more. But what would it look like if we actually swapped out the way she's styled a little bit? Let's look at a different process. What could that look like after we've made all the other changes with the layering, and then we start implementing the appropriate styling techniques? Well, this is what that could look like. Now, I know there's a lot of curl here, but I will say that you would be shocked at the amount of curl that you can enhance in hair through the appropriate technique, as well as through the appropriate amount of layering. Now that we've lightened this shape up as much as we have, it's going to be a lot easier to get a bit more of that wave or curl into her hair. Once we couple that with the appropriate styling techniques and the appropriate product, etc., and all of a sudden now we're getting a surprising amount more curl than she would be used to. And the better part of this is that it's much more likely that this is going to last a lot longer than it did before. So this is actually a very reasonable amount of curl that I would expect to see out of Melissa's hair. But with all of that said, now you kind of know what this would look like. Why don't we talk about some curveballs? In Melissa's case specifically, if you remember in her email, she did say that she was open to anything at this point. But as a stylist, I have to kind of read in between some of these lines, and I want to show what would be the best option, in my opinion, for Melissa. So when I took into consideration what she's struggling with, which was holding the wave or curl, or really holding the finished look, also with the necessity of being able to pull her hair back, because she does like an ease of being able to pull it back, so we want to keep enough length to be able to do that, as well as give her a polished look that I think will last a long time and look fantastic on her. This is what I came up with. Now, I know this looks very similar to kind of where she's at, or really where I already kind of walked her through in terms of the mistakes and how I'd address them. But at the end of the day, this is still very much on purpose. But more importantly, I still think it lends to her natural look that she kind of might be moving towards, but at the same time has a more polished feel. So I think it would be a great option for her. Now, this extra length still allows her the versatility of being able to get her hair back into a ponytail easily, but with the layering, it gives it a lot more movement and texture. Now, I need to also address her color, because she did mention at what point does it just get to the place where you just give up and go gray? So when do you just give up, go gray, forget coloring in? Fact of the matter is, that answer is different for everyone. Really depends on where you're at with what you want from your hair and what kind of time you're willing to spend on it. But it does kind of get back to one of the original things that I was talking about in this video, which is self-confidence. Here's the deal. Forget what I say. Like, legitimately ignore me. I'm not that cool. So ignore what I tell you, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And I know if you're like, what? It makes no sense. Why would you tell me what to do and then tell me not to listen to you? Because at the end of the day, It's 100% about what makes you feel best. I always say that on the channel, and it'll never change. If you feel better in dark hair versus gray hair, I would say that time is never then. What time do you give up? You give up when you're comfortable doing either or. When you feel like you can wear gray hair and just rock it because you're confident in it, that's when you go gray. It's up to you, and I wish I could give you a better answer, but that's the truth. So I hope that helped, and I hope that you liked it. And I want to just say ahead of time, thank you very much for taking that moment out of your day to spread some positivity from Melissa and just make a person's day a little bit better. I appreciate that. It doesn't go unnoticed. And I appreciate you hanging out. So yeah, now is the time where if you've not already, I will say, hit that subscribe button, hang out if you want to see a little bit more like this. If you like this kind of content, well then join the family, hang out. And maybe I'll do some more videos around the salon. Probably not. Not for a while, but nonetheless, I appreciate you joining me today. You have a fantastic week. I will see you next Tuesday. Take care. Bye.